How have our phones changed us? How do our devices hinder God's plan for our lives? How can we take back control? Well, let's get into it. The telephone and the personal computer are recognized as two of the most important inventions in history. Today, we have combined these things into a device that we carry with us absolutely everywhere. The smartphone has also cannibalized many of our other devices. It's our camera, our music player, our GPS, and even our flashlight. For now, at least, the smartphone is the device to rule them all. Not everyone owns a smartphone, but most of us do. In November 2023, Consumer Affairs reported that 92% of individuals in the U.S. have at least one smartphone. In less than 2 decades, smartphones have transformed our society in numerous ways. Almost everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket or purse today. Something so powerful and so present deserves some serious reflection. I didn't get a smartphone until I was in my mid-20s. But soon after I got my phone, a friend at my office commented that I already had the itch. I was starting to obsessively check my phone even when there weren't any notifications. Before getting my phone, I had also been writing pretty consistently, but afterwards I noticed that I was writing less. In the decade since I got my first smartphone, I've continued to contend with the negative influence that my phone can have on me. And as a society, we're starting to wrestle with how the smartphone is affecting us. The Harvard Business Review recently reported on a study that found that the mere presence of our phones makes us less attentive and less productive, even if we're not using our phones. Authors Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge have raised the alarm about the negative effects that smartphones and social media are having on young people today, especially on young girls. Twenge reports, every indicator of mental health and psychological well-being has become more negative among teens and young adults since 2012. In February, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released data showing that nearly 1 in 3 high school girls considered suicide in 2021, a 60% increase since 2011. More girls also now report feeling so sad and hopeless that they couldn't engage in their normal activities for at least 2 weeks in the last year. There are a whole host of reasons why we as a society need to reconsider our relationship with our phones. But in this study, we are trying to understand what God thinks about technology. We're trying to lay out a distinctly Christian way of thinking about tech. Back in Lesson 2, we spoke about how God gave people authority over plants, animals, and the rest of the earth. Perhaps one of the most troubling features about our modern digital devices is that they often reverse the direction of this dominion. No longer do we exercise authority over our tools, they now exercise authority over us. We can easily become enslaved to the stimulation that our devices provide, and for Christians, this should be a deep concern. In the book of 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul writes to a people who were proud of their personal freedom. He quotes one of their favorite sayings, and then he responds to this favorite saying of theirs. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. Well, Paul says 2 very important things here. First, we need to ask not only, can I do this, but we also need to discern, is this good for me? There are no verses in the Bible that prohibit smartphones or social media, but that should not be the end of the discussion. We must discern if these things are actually helpful for us. The second thing Paul indicates here is that we shouldn't turn our lives over to things that dominate us. Addiction, whether to a substance, a behavior, or a device, is not something that God wants for us at all. When something controls us, we lose the freedom to serve God effectively. And we must not cede the authority that God has given us to our digital devices. In this discussion, there's something that we must be very clear about. The creators of our devices and apps have different goals for us than God has for us. God's goal for Christians is clearly stated in Romans 8:29. For those God foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. Simply put, God's goal for us is to become like Jesus as members of God's spiritual family. Our thoughts, our actions, and our character should increasingly become like His. We should live and look like Him. And this is very much not the goal of the companies behind our smartphones. In our capitalistic society, profit is the ultimate goal. J. Kim puts it this way: the apps we use are actually using us. We're not so much the consumers as the products. Each search and click provides valuable data to companies constantly searching for ways to effectively commodify our attention, and more slyly, our addiction. The bottom line is to keep us scrolling and swiping at any cost. We must understand that the financial incentives of these companies are at odds with our personal and spiritual health. Their ideal customer is not a healthy person. They make more money when we are more lonely, insecure, and depressed. And because profit is their ultimate incentive, these companies will consistently nudge us toward unhealthy life patterns. Now, it's fine and good to have hearings on Capitol Hill about the dangers of tech and social media, but the truth is that we should never trust these companies because their ultimate interests are different from ours. We can't trust companies to keep us healthy. We need to keep ourselves healthy. With God's help, we need to take back control of our time and attention, because it's not just our health that we should be concerned about. Our smartphones and apps are also shaping our beliefs and shaping our character even. We shouldn't let our political compass be calibrated by YouTube rabbit holes. We shouldn't submit our self-esteem to Instagram stories. We shouldn't turn over our moral convictions to the TikTok algorithm. We shouldn't delegate our character formation to our digital devices. Don't let your smartphone do things that only Jesus should do for you. Now, let me leave you with a few practical tips to take back control from your smartphones. First, turn off as many notifications as you can. Don't let your apps tell you when they want your attention. Something really annoying that I have run into just recently is that apps have actually started prompting you to turn notifications back on. We must tell them no and keep telling them no. Number 2, keep your phone outside of your bedroom at night. It's so easy to lay in bed and scroll. And not only does this eat up our time, but it also can expose us to unnecessary temptations. If you struggle to sleep like I do, this can also really help. All of us need tech-free zones in our life, and the bedroom is a good place to start. You could even replace your phone on your bedstand with a physical Bible. That'd be a great idea. Number 3, keep your phone out of your sight when you need to focus or you need to care for others. Distraction destroys our productivity, and distraction hampers our relationships. God did not make our minds to handle endless inputs at the same time. Our world needs followers of Jesus who are fully present in their work and in their relationships. Don't let your smartphone rob you of the focus that you need to do the things that God has called you to do. Don't let it stop you from loving the people that God has called you to love. I don't share any of these things because I have achieved victory over digital distractions. Honestly, I'm the most online pastor at this church. I have a Twitter account, 3 Instagram accounts, multiple Facebook pages, and multiple websites. You know, I don't even think Pastor Gordon is actually on Facebook, but for me, there are no shortage of distractions. I have to fight this battle every single day, but it's a battle that's worth fighting because at the end of the day, I want to look more like Jesus. So church, let's fight together.